County Zoning and Planning Department. Other county staff we have here tonight is my boss, Chief Deputy County Administrator Walt Smalls. We've got Stephanie Ondo and Nikki Grimble. And then presenting, we've got Monica Eustace and Emily Piggott. So the format tonight will be the presentation, which will take about an hour. We will hold questions until the end, so if you think of questions along the way, please feel free to jot them down. We've got some pens in the back to use for that, and then we'll do a question and answer session at the end. We do need to be out of here by about 8 o'clock tonight so we can let our security guards go home. So thank you again for attending, and I'm going to turn it over to Monica, who's going to do the first part of the presentation.
Welcome, everybody, to our session on Historic Preservation 101 with the Charleston County Zoning and Planning team. We're going to cover the fundamentals of historic preservation, focusing on how we protect and celebrate the rich history embedded in our communities. Remember, this isn't just about preserving old buildings, it's about maintaining the fabric of our history, which connects us all. Let's discover how we can honor our past while planning for the future. Our agenda is straightforward and designed to guide you through key concepts effectively. First, we'll cover the historic designation process. This will give you insights into how areas are formally recognized for their historical significance. Next, we'll talk about identifying contributing resources, and this is all about recognizing the parts of a district that add to its historical value. We'll navigate area character appraisals, which help us understand the unique qualities that define a historic area. Then we'll talk about certificates of historic appropriateness, which are required to develop and redevelop properties in historic districts. Finally, we'll wrap up the presentation section with overlay zoning districts, which are crucial in maintaining the character of historic areas through zoning regulations. As we go through this presentation...
Hey, Al, you got it?
I don't know.
Please feel free to jot down any questions for our Q&A session at the end. Let's get started on this journey through Charleston County's rich historical fabric. We're going to explore Charleston County historic districts. We have 4 locally designated districts. Those are Phillips, Beefield, 10 Mile, and Hamlin Beach. Each district holds a unique piece of our shared history. Now, what makes a historic district? According to the National Register of Historic Places, it's more than just a collection of old buildings. It's a geographically defined area connected by significant past events or a shared aesthetic plan. In Charleston County, these districts are recognized locally as South Carolina doesn't have state designations. This local focus allows us to protect and celebrate our area's distinct historical narratives. In these districts, it's not just about the buildings and structures, but also about the history of the land that contributes to a larger historical tapestry, even if not all are individually notable. As we move forward in the presentation, we'll dive deeper into how these designations work and their importance. Let's uncover how they help preserve not just structures, but the very fabric of our community. Let's get to the heart of what makes our communities unique, and that's their historic designation. We'll begin by exploring key processes and criteria that guide historic designations. Understanding these is crucial because it sets the stage for recognizing and preserving the significant sites within our region. First, let's focus on why historic designation is essential. It's more than just preserving buildings. It's about maintaining the visual character and identity of our community. This is a powerful planning tool that helps us celebrate and protect our shared heritage. According to Section 629-870 of the South Carolina Code of Laws, Our counties, cities, and municipalities have the power to pass ordinances that preserve and protect these valuable historic areas. In Charleston County, our Historic Preservation Ordinance doesn't just designate historic properties and districts, it ensures that these areas maintain their significance as cohesive units. Imagine a mosaic. Each piece might be different, but together they create a beautiful picture. Similarly, historic districts may include various resources, some with individual distinction and others without, but as a whole, they tell a story of our past. Remember, even if individual components lack distinction, they contribute collectively to the district's historic character. The district's integrity is what keeps the story alive, allowing future generations to experience our community's journey through time. When applying for a historic district or property designation, there are several key components you'll need to gather and prepare. Let's walk through these essential requirements together. First, you'll need to complete an application form. This is your starting point and needs to be comprehensive. It's important to note that every application must be signed, so ensure all necessary signatures are collected. Alongside this, a map is crucial as it delineates the boundaries of your proposed district or property. You'll also need a letter of intent. This letter should clearly outline your objectives and commitment to the preservation efforts. It's your chance to express why this designation matters to you and the community. Your application must include a written description demonstrating compliance with at least one approval criterion alongside documentation of significance. This helps establish the historical value you're aiming to protect. Now let's talk about contributing resources. These are the historic and cultural assets that you wish to preserve. You'll need a detailed list, including their locations and descriptions, to support your application. This information helps illustrate the historical significance and integrity of the area. By ensuring all these elements are well prepared, you're setting a strong foundation for your application success. Now let's talk about an important part of the historic district designation process, the petition. For a district to move forward in this process, a petition must be signed by 51% of the district's registered voters. This threshold is crucial as it ensures that the designation has substantial community support. The 51% figure is not just a number, it reflects a collective commitment to preserving the character and history of the community. This level of support signifies that more than half of the community sees value in maintaining their district's historic essence. Think of it as a communal agreement, a shared vision for protecting the past while planning for the future. It's a significant step, but also an empowering one for the community. We'll move on to the historic designation process, which is critical for preserving our community's characters. First, a pre-application meeting is scheduled with county staff. This important step is a collaborative discussion about the property, ensuring everyone understands the review and approval procedures. Next, applicants submit supporting documentation electronically. County staff reviews these documents and provides feedback until the application is complete. Once the application is ready, the staff takes steps to inform the public. This includes placing ads in the newspaper, mailing letters to nearby property owners, and reaching out to those on the county's interested parties lists. This ensures transparency and community involvement. Then the staff presents the application to the Historic Preservation Commission. Their recommendation is essential as the application moves on to the county council process. The next step in the historic designation process involves another round of public notification before a public hearing is held. During the County Council public hearing, staff presents the application and the community has the opportunity to voice their opinions. Remember, speakers are limited to 2 minutes each, so concise and impactful communication is key. This will ensure that we hear from many voices without extending the meeting for too long. Afterwards, the application then moves to the Planning and Public Works Committee. This committee reviews the proposal in detail and makes a recommendation to the County Council. It's a critical step where the technical aspects are thoroughly evaluated. Following this, the proposal must receive 3 favorable readings from the County Council across 3 separate meetings. This step ensures thorough consideration and public accountability. Upon conclusion of the 3rd favorable reading, the property or district designation is officially approved. This process, though detailed, is designed to balance public input and careful consideration, ensuring that historic designations are thoughtfully and democratically decided. Let's explore how historic designation differs from homeowners associations, or HOAs. We begin with historic districts. Areas that aim to preserve the architectural and historical importance of structures within them. They are not run by a specific organization and don't collect fees like annual dues. Instead, they're often established by local governments and follow specific rules such as restrictions on demolitions, renovations, and new construction. Let's compare this to an HOA. Homeowners associations are private organizations. They're overseen by an elected board that enforces rules and collects fees for shared expenses. These associations typically uphold covenants and restrictions, covering everything from parking rules to where you can place your trash cans or holiday decorations. While HOAs can help maintain property values, they can also impose strict rules that might hinder development, like building new homes. HOAs and historic districts both contribute significantly to the preservation of local resources, but they do it in various ways and with varying degrees of authority. Homeowners and property owners can manage the challenges of keeping their property while upholding the objectives of conserving the community's legacy by being aware of the particular laws and regulations of each. While both historic districts and HOAs are vital in safeguarding local resources, their operations differ. Historic districts prioritize the conservation of the community's heritage, whereas HOAs focus on upholding the standards of the immediate living environment. Okay. Let's talk about what historic designation doesn't do. First, it does not require review or approval for routine maintenance. It also doesn't force property owners to make changes to their properties. You have the freedom to keep things as they are unless you choose otherwise. Importantly, it doesn't impact any proposed interior changes. You can renovate or redecorate inside as you wish. Lastly, it doesn't restrict or change allowed land uses or zoning. The designation respects the original intent of the property's use. Remember, the goal of historic designation is to preserve, not to limit. When applying for historic designation, one crucial step is to compile a list of the community's contributing resources. So what exactly is a contributing resource? Imagine a building, object, site, or structure within a historic district or on a historic property. What makes it special is how it adds to the area's historic significance. This contribution can be done through its location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, or even its historic associations. Contributing resources can also help prioritize important sites for staff and the Historic Preservation Commission. Think of these resources as pieces of a larger puzzle, each adding depth and richness to the community's story. As we explore these resources further, we'll see how they help us understand and preserve the heritage of the area. Let's break down the key terms and their meanings. Each of these examples shown on the right side of the screen is a contributing resource that enriches the historical tapestry of the Phillips Community Historic District. They highlight the diverse ways history is preserved and celebrated. When applying for historic designation, it's crucial to list the contributing resources. These are the elements, be it a building, object, site, or structure, that enhance the historic significance of a property through their design, materials, and historical associations. First, a historic building is any construction primarily meant to provide shelter for human activity. Think of houses, barns, or churches. These structures are the ones that have been our homes, our places of gathering, and our community landmarks. Our example historic building on the right is a charming one-story bungalow that's also one of the oldest historic surviving structures in the Phillips community. It represents both architectural style and residential life from a bygone era. Next, we have historic objects. These are different from buildings or structures. They're mainly small-scale constructions like monuments that add a unique character to our history. On the right, we have the historic object, a remnant of the original wooden boundary post from the 1875 plat of the Phillips Tract. It serves as a tangible connection to the community's origins. Moving on, a historic site refers to locations where significant events took place or where there's a historic occupation or activity. It's not just about any remaining structures. The site itself holds historical, cultural, or archaeological value. Our example historic site is the former location of the Phillips School and its old well. The circa 1911 Phillips School was moved to the property at the corner of Parker's Island Road prior to the establishment of Highway 41 in 1938. The well was created when the school was relocated and was likely abandoned after the school's closure in 1953. The well has since been filled in with cement. Finally, there's the historic structure category, which includes functional constructions built for purposes other than for providing human shelter, like bridges or mills. On the right, we find one of 4 open-air sweetgrass basket stands that are along the south side of Highway 41. These structures are not just functional, they embody a cultural tradition that continues to thrive today.
Awesome. Thanks, Monica. So I'm going to kick up on the second half. And the first topic I'm going to talk about is the area character appraisal. So this is a documentation tool, and it is an optional piece of the historic district designation application. However, I think hopefully by the end of my spiel here, you'll come to see why this is so valuable and why we highly encourage that this be completed during the designation process. So an area character appraisal is a document that describes the distinct appearance and feel of a settlement or an area. It communicates the key physical features and characteristics that combine to give a particular settlement or area its local distinctiveness and unique identity. Its primary goal is to clearly articulate and map the character of an area so that all planning decisions, especially related to new development, are informed and appropriate. Okay, so the ACA, it goes beyond simply a historic survey. It defines the area's physical character. So it includes the general form, which might be the street layout, the block sizes, and the setbacks. It defines the scale, massing, and height of structures within a community. It also talks about common design and material palettes found throughout the community. That might be what shape the roof takes. That might be what types of windows are found in the community. And the landscape setting, including topography, street trees, open spaces, and waterways if we have them. The ACA addresses experiential character, so the sense of place, right? That kind of thing we can't quite put a word to, but we know it when we see it. Vibrancy, tranquility. It also helps to identify features that are detrimental to the area's significance. So ACAs, they typically conclude with specific recommendations for next steps to further the community's preservation goals. So they can serve as a baseline to inform decision-making, and it does provide the Historic Preservation Commission with the objective evidence to legally manage change and ensure that historic qualities of the district are preserved and enhanced for future generations. So here's an example pulled from the City of Charleston's area character appraisal for the Wagner Terrace neighborhood, which is on the peninsula north of the crosstown. On the left-hand side, you can see their table of contents. So you can see all of the items they felt were important to include in their area character appraisal. This might not be the same for every community. Not everything might be equally as important, right? In the middle, you can see some mapping exercises they did. So on the top is the 1955 building footprints on each lot. And they did a comparison between the 2023 build out. So you can see there how the building footprints have changed over time or not. And then on the right-hand side, this is, they picked some select streets you can see in yellow. They felt like those streets were representative of all different areas of the community. And they did calculations there of the lot coverage, the setbacks, and found out what those patterns were for their community. Additionally, they marked up some beautiful photos of examples of common architectural styles. Now, this is not a complete representation. I just pulled out two as an example. So this is really helpful for future applicants or developers. As they come in, they can distinctly see what are the architectural details that make this area so important, and how can I incorporate that in a future design. And then lastly, like I mentioned, those recommendations. So those are on the right-hand side of the screen. Typically, an area character appraisal will recommend things for the future, whether or not that be specific regulations or additional changes that they wanted to see in the future. So area character appraisals do have to be verified by an appropriate third-party professional. So while citizens can endeavor a lot of this work on their own, and we typically do see that, it will need to run through somebody that has a discerning eye, whether that be an architect, a historian, a preservation professional. We do have some experience locally working with some great preservation groups that have assisted communities. So if you are looking for an avenue to turn to for that technical assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to the county, and we hope that we can point you in the right direction to connect you with the folks that are already doing the work in the area. Also, like Monica mentioned about that 51% of the registered voter piece, that is also a requirement for this application as well. So that kind of leads into why we highly recommend doing both of these at the same time. If you have to go out and get 51% of your community signatures, it might be best to just do it all in one fell swoop and get their support on both of those documents. Another reason is, again, just to help guide decision making. So this is, a formal voice for what the community has determined is common in their area and what is appropriate for the future. So again, it is a key piece. It is optional as part of the designation application, but we highly, highly encourage folks to endeavor on that at the same time. So now we're going to switch gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk about a certificate of historic appropriateness. And I mentioned this to my colleagues. This is not a term that we came up with. If we did, it would have been a lot shorter. This is kind of the standard term that's used for this type of application. And this is if you're already designated as a historic property or district, and you want to make changes to your property, you want to develop that property, maybe it's vacant, or you want to redevelop it, maybe you want to do an alteration to what you have existing out there. A certificate of historic appropriateness, it's a required extra step in the permitting process for anyone that wants to do work on historic properties and in historic districts, and sometimes even within 300 feet of those historic properties and districts. So we do call this application a CHA. So you might hear us use that term throughout the presentation. But this requirement, like I mentioned, it's triggered by the request for a zoning permit or an application for site plan review. And that's a staff level review process that covers everything other than single family residential development or mobile homes. So that would cover everything from a duplex up until the most intense of industrial uses. If you need a permit to build an addition, change your site plan, or even clear the land, sometimes you'll need a CHA first. And CHAs are not only on historic properties, like I mentioned, but for those site plan review applications, anything within 300 feet of a historic property also requires a CHA. And you might wonder, why is that? And that's because development right next door to historic properties could potentially negatively impact the historic feel of a designated area. Additionally, the potential demolition of any identified contributing resources, like Monica mentioned earlier, that would also require a CHA, as it has the potential to have the most severe impact on a historic property or district. The purpose of a CHA is to determine if the proposed work will negatively impact the historic property or district and ensure that the public is notified of the work being done. So the Historic Preservation Commission, they evaluate the applications, and they can vote to either approve with conditions, defer, or deny the application. And they are the final decision maker at the local level. So if an applicant does disagree with a denial, the option for appeal is directly to the circuit court. So we do understand that not every minor repair or change might need a full commission review. So our ordinance does provide exemptions for routine maintenance and certain temporary uses. Also exterior repairs that don't involve changing the appearance of the structure. Mechanical units and power pole installations, also mobile home replacements where there are no change to the size and location. Those can often qualify for just a staff level review or potentially an exemption as well. And these exemptions allow the commission to focus its time on major changes that truly have the potential to impact the historic character of our communities. All right, so moving on to the CHA approval criteria. So in order for a CHA to be approved, all of the following criteria that you see here must be met. So the proposed site improvements must be compatible with the historic, cultural, and or architectural character of the applicable historic property or district. And that's either based on the listing of the National Register or the local county listing, just depending on how that designation was achieved. The proposed site improvements do not decrease the historic integrity of properties containing identified contributing resources. So again, historic integrity is the ability of a property to convey its history, and it is the sum of 7 key factors that Monica mentioned earlier: location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. And lastly, any negative impacts to the applicable historic property or historic district have been minimized and mitigated. So we define negative impact as adversely changing the quality of the historical, architectural, or cultural significance of a resource or the characteristics that qualify the resource as historically important. So for example, if your project requires the removal of a later non-historic addition, the impact might be considered minimal. But if it requires demolishing an outbuilding that was noted as a historic contributing resource, that might be a more severe impact. So the approval criteria requires applicants to minimize negative impacts by exploring all alternatives and then reducing any remaining harm through steps like archaeological recovery or a detailed historical documentation before any work occurs. Okay, so these are the commission considerations. So the commission can evaluate if the proposed designs are compatible with the historic setting around it. So each application is reviewed individually in its particular unique context. The commission considers the general design and whether its character is appropriate for the area. Would a futuristic glass tower be appropriate next to a row of 19th century brick houses? Maybe not. If the commission pays close attention to the height, scale, and mass or bulk of your design, if all surrounding historic homes are 2 stories, a 4-story structure might look out of scale in that context. The commission also looks at the materials, colors, and textures of any proposed designs, and they should be harmonious with the materials, colors, and textures found on the existing historic structures in the immediate area. The commission also considers the original designation supporting materials. So if there was an area character appraisal, that would also be considered, of course. And it includes thinking about the specific reasons why that property or district was designated as historic and any of those additional identified contributing resources. The commission does also rely on the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. And that's a handbook of best practices for preservation. It's produced at the federal level. And it does outline, best recommendations for working on historic buildings and within historic districts. It also makes recommendations for when to repair something versus when to replace something. And it also promotes that any new construction be visually compatible, but does not try to look deceptively old. So if your design doesn't quite fit in the eyes of the commission, they might require minor changes like adjusting the front of your building or moving the placement of the building on the lot. But changes that would make it impossible for you to utilize your property based on its legal zoning are not permitted. And they can also, at this time, defer the application to allow the applicant to formulate their own design changes. All right, so this is a little bit about the CHA process. Before any applications are submitted, we do require that prospective applicants meet with staff. That's either virtual or in person. And it is a very important step where we educate the prospective applicants about the commission, about the regulations, kind of like we're talking about now, why a CHA is necessary for their project, and sometimes we even help educate them about the historic resource if they're not familiar. And we do call that a pre-application meeting. And after that meeting, it's up to the applicant to complete their application packet and submit it to staff for review. Staff provides comments on the application until it is deemed complete, so it has all of the required items. Prior to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, staff will post signage, notify property owners within 300 feet of the subject property and everyone on our interested parties list, and then we also place an advertisement in the Post and Courier. Staff then presents the application to the Historic Preservation Commission for their determination. And there is an opportunity for public input during that meeting. If approved, the applicant then works to obtain all necessary permits prior to beginning their site work. All right, and these are the requirements for a CHA application. The first is a letter of intent. That is an opportunity for the applicants to describe their project in detail and then also provide their own responses to those 3 approval criteria. So they kind of make the case for themselves as well. We do also ask for a copy of a current recorded plat to accompany the application. And that is so we can be sure that the lot lines match what is being submitted on your site plan. And that can be however old the plat of record is, as long as it's still that current plat. We do ask for a couple signatures on affidavits. One, just letting folks know about posting signage on the property if the signage goes missing. Another one is related to something Monica mentioned earlier. It's usually homeowners associations. They might have those additional restrictive covenants. So we do ask for an affidavit for your signature, just saying that you are not aware of any restrictions that would prevent you from doing the work that you're proposing on your site. Then the last two pieces are arguably the most important, the first being the site plan. So that is going to be your bird's eye view looking down of the property in question. It'll show your property dimensions. It'll show your setbacks. It will also show any existing and proposed structures. It will also, depending on the site, show any grand trees that might be impacted. If there are wetlands, things like that will be required to be shown on the site plan. And then to accompany the site plan, we also ask for architectural elevations if it's new construction or vertical construction. And that would be if you're standing on the street looking directly at the proposed building or structure, it would be a look at all four sides, or I guess it could be 5 sides, right? Depending on the building, all sides of the building. So yeah, we will ask for that as part of your application. And I do want to stress that almost all of these requirements would be required anyways as part of the permitting process. It's largely the narrative piece. That's the additional piece, the responses to the approval criteria. Okay, so now we are going to take a little bit more of a hard transition as we move on to the next piece of the presentation that we were asked to cover today. And that is because we're going to move into overlay zoning districts. So everything that we've talked about up until this point has really been talking about historic designation, everything related to the historic preservation process. The overlay zoning district is a separate beast, let's call it, right? It lives in the zoning world, whereas I hope we stressed earlier that the preservation is a separate piece from the zoning. It doesn't impact the zoning. So now we're going to be talking about, let's say we have a unique circumstance. You know, I mentioned a couple situations here. It might be that you're working with a lot of different jurisdictions in one community. I think some of us are familiar with that scenario. You might have a traditional development pattern that's super unique and doesn't fit very neatly into the typical Euclidean zoning ordinance, right? You might also have important natural resources that the community might be concerned about the ongoing health and preservation of. So an overlay zoning district is a customized set of zoning regulations for a particular community. And like I mentioned, it is typically triggered by a particular problem that wants to be addressed or future vision that the community has they would like to see realized. So these are some items that can be regulated in an overlay zoning district. So again, we're in the zoning world now. So that might be things like how many homes can you put on a lot? That's your density. How tall is your building? How large can it be in terms of square footage? How much of the lot can you cover with something like concrete where the water is not going to get through? That's your impervious surface coverage. They can also illustrate and clearly outline land uses. So what a community wants to see be allowed on properties within their community. They can also dictate specific vegetated buffers, requirements to keep trees on a site, increase or reduce setbacks, just depending. They might outline things like parking requirements and signage that are beyond what we have in our current ordinance. And then a lot of the overlays also talk about pedestrian infrastructure, so different requirements for multi-use paths or sidewalks as you develop along a particular corridor. Now, this slide is just intended to get you all thinking It's not intended to say these are all of the items that have to be addressed in every overlay. This is just an example of some things that could be regulated. Okay, so the overlay zoning district process, it can be a lengthy process, and it requires a lot of community engagement. So we do, as staff, rely a lot on our community members. It typically starts by a community approaching county staff about that unique circumstance we mentioned earlier that might be impacting their community, and that the key is can be addressed through zoning. We do hear a lot about all different concerns facing our citizens. Unfortunately, we're tied to just the zoning piece and what we can do in the zoning world. So at that point, we would have many community meetings, and we would work to draft an overlay. And everything that would be drafted, again, would be coming through the community input. This would not be staff putting their vision on the community. I did note here, it is very important for the community to have a unified vision prior to engaging with county staff. I think that will make the process a lot quicker and easier for folks. So if communities can do that upfront work in advance, we've seen that to be very favorable. But ultimately, anything that is produced out of this, any overlay zoning district, it would require review and approval by county council before being implemented. So I wanted to use a couple examples of overlays that we have currently, just to give you an idea of what some of the problems that the communities were facing, so to speak, and the solutions that they came up with to address those within their own communities. So starting with Sol Agree, I did just want to give a little bit of context for those that might not be familiar. But this community was established during the Reconstruction era, and it was a prominent African-American community with roots in the Gullah Geechee culture. And the land use development is incredibly unique. I'm not sure if it's coming through on the pattern here, but due to the use of the long lot farm parcels, they maximized frontage along both the roadways and then adjacent waterways. So it resulted in these really long, skinny lots that you can see today. And that actually made it so folks were not able to subdivide their property. They weren't able to meet that minimum lot width and other dimensional standards. So that is addressed through this overlay. The inability to subdivide properties due to those inflexible subdivision standards. They also addressed a lack of flexibility in land uses that were traditionally seen in the community. So in the historic Mosquito Beach area, there was, community-oriented uses like farmers markets, community gardens, and things like that. That were no longer able to be reestablished with the single-family zoning that was in place at the time. And then lastly, they saw a threat to their community character as some new development was coming in, and they were seeing a difference in the scale and design with what was existing out there. So I don't expect you to be able to read this right now, but I just want to show you that what they did was they made their own density, intensity, and dimensional standards table. And they wrote in an ability for folks with those long, skinny lots to subdivide if they meet certain requirements. And we have found this to be incredibly effective. It's almost been in place for 10 years now. Yeah. And then they also outlined those specific density, intensity, and dimensional standards for their commercial areas. So they said, we want to allow some commercial, but we want to be able to limit it and tailor it to what is appropriate for us. So that's what you can see here. They also implemented certain development standards. So for example, they felt like gated communities were not in keeping with the culture of their area. So they prohibited those in the overlay. They also incorporated some interesting requirements for fencing, which wasn't traditionally found in Sol Agree. So they did limit the height to 6 feet, except if there are certain materials, you're actually limited to 4 feet, just depending. And then they do have a statement here that they encourage open, transparent fencing. They also wrote specific sign requirements about the styles and size that they wanted to see. And then also as part of this overlay, designated a special protection area for the stormwater piece. So they understood that the watershed and basin that Soligree is in is threatened by new development and coastal flooding. And so that was the way that they've addressed that. And that might require folks to do additional regulations to address stormwater on their property as a case-by-case basis, just depending on what the Public Works Director determines is necessary. They also added some specific use conditions. So for example, if you wanted to do a duplex within the Soligree community, you would have to meet these requirements. So the lot has to be twice the minimum lot size required unless it existed prior to the adoption of this ordinance. But the key piece here is that they limited the total square footage. So combined, it can't be more than 2,500 square feet. And also, they require that it have the appearance of a single-family home, and they provided these visuals to show of what they wanted to see on the top versus something that they found more incompatible on the bottom. They also stipulated specific manufacturing and production uses. This was important as they had some mariculture, oyster farming out there. There was a tradition of that, and the particular stipulation here is the no on-site retail sales and the entirely enclosed, and then the limits on the floor area and employees. So to move on to another example, we have an overlay zoning district in the western portion of the county known as Parker's Ferry. And again, this was the result of a very robust ongoing community engagement process. The public that participated in the Parker's Ferry planning effort, they recognize that future development within their community should be compatible with what's currently there. The participants felt that future residential densities should remain low and that new development should respect the continuation of existing land uses, such as in this area, it's agriculture, forestry. They mentioned churches and cemeteries, schools, and historic buildings. The participants also recognized that there was a need to allow for a limited selection of appropriate businesses, offices, service uses, and employment opportunities as well for local residents, provided that the location, the building scale, and the impervious surface coverage is compatible with that existing development and remains consistent with the rural community land patterns. So it might be difficult to see on this map, but circled in the pinkish color are those identified commercial nodes. So throughout this overlay, it identifies, hey, those are the areas we want to see commercial development in the future. So when any rezoning applications come in front of county council, they can look at this and say, oh, is that appropriate given what the community had said and where they wanted those uses to be? One thing that they did, like I mentioned, is they clearly outlined the uses that they wanted to see within Parker's Ferry. So, for example, they prohibited many things like microbreweries, tattoo facilities, firearm sales, billboards was something they definitely didn't want to see. Liquor, beer, wine sales, those are all prohibited in the overlay. It does also clearly outline everything that is allowed for that residential area and then the commercial areas as well, so there are no questions. And then, like I mentioned, they also add use conditions that are unique to Parker's Ferry. Another thing that Parker's Ferry looked at was the home occupation regulations. So they wanted to tailor those to work better for them. They do allow for certain uses that are not otherwise allowed as home occupations in other areas, like special trade contractors. But then on the other hand, they do also prohibit some certain home occupations in residential areas like small animal boarding, medical offices. They also allow for additional employees Up to 5 non-resident employees might work at a home occupation. However, you do have to get a special exception approval and go through site plan review, but there is a process for that. And recently, we had the 10 Mile community become the very first historic district that also went on to adopt an overlay zoning district as well. And then to kind of pull it full circle, I wanted to provide this slide to show a comparison between historic designation, what protections that might give you, and then overlay zoning districts. So just to talk first about historic designation, it's not a process that everyone is going to be interested in. Some folks don't have the desire to have that additional regulation over how they develop or redevelop their property. There are some drawbacks that include like a lengthier review process, that additional CHA application. It might also make it difficult sometimes to find appropriate materials for replacement. But some folks find that the formal recognition of designation is one of the biggest benefits, actually. A perceived benefit of historic designation would be the increased protection of the character of the communities by requiring that public notice and a public hearing for a variety of development applications, as well as approval by the commission. There are also opportunities for state and federal tax savings if the property owners pursue those on their own, currently not anything through the county. So just to reiterate, it provides for an ongoing public process. So each time an application for a CHA is submitted, folks can come out and provide their input on each specific application. And it also, like I mentioned, this is all looking at how properties are going to look from the outside. Now, the overlay zoning district, that's a different piece. So that changes the zoning of an area. If you designate your neighborhood as historic, that does not change the current zoning that's in place. But if you're looking to do things like change how properties can be used, change how many homes you might be able to put on a property, those are the sort of things that can be addressed through an overlay. However, the overlay does not result in an ongoing public process, because once that overlay is adopted, that becomes codified, and that is the regulation for anyone moving forward. It doesn't result in a public process. You all would not be notified if applications were coming in, things like that. But one thing I did want to note is that both of these applications do require widespread community support in order to be successful. So that is an incredibly important piece that we rely on you all for, although we do try to assist as much as we can along the way. Thank you guys so much. I know that was a lot of information that we just ran through. We tried to cover everything that the community had asked us to cover in this info session. So, but I do want to stress for everyone here in person, and I know Stephanie's handling the folks on the Zoom today, that we are available to meet with everyone individually, small groups. We can come out to your community if we haven't already. And we're always around to talk about any one piece of this, all of it, anything you need, we are here for you. So I don't want you to think that this is just a one and done type situation. And I do want to acknowledge that this was a lot of information you all just sat through. So we're hoping that might have spurred some questions. If they didn't, hopefully you could maybe take this information back and mull it over, and something might come up in the future, and then you can reach out to us. So we're going to open it up to the question and answer just in a moment here. we're going to have our folks on the Zoom show up. Stephanie, anyone that wants to speak on the Zoom? Not yet? Okay, awesome. If we do, I think we got one right now. We're going to start with the folks on the Zoom and just see how many we have. And Monica.
Hello.
Ready.
Hi,
Can you
we're
hear
going to
me?
start with Christine and Thomas Koenig on our Zoom call. Would you like to ask us your questions?
Is this to me, Thomas?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. Firstly, I want to say that was a great presentation. Ton of information, a lot of detail. But I want to make a comment that as much great work and everything that's gone into this, it's very vulnerable due to the weakest link. And I'm speaking from experience because I went through this entire process. And the weakest link is when you have everything done and it's presented, there's a board up there. And after all the presentations are done, this is the biggest, weakest link. There's others, but no one says anything. Everyone's waiting for someone to either decide this is a good thing or a bad thing. So someone finally takes the role of saying yes or no, and then everyone else gets to chime in then yes or no and why. But at that point, the poison has been sown. When you have something as important as how people live their lives, and believe me, at 65, every year is precious, and 1 year is ticked by, and I don't have a garage up because one guy on the board, he spoke up and he says, no, I think I'm going to deny it. And he also said, and I really wish I had more time to go out and see if there's other garages the same size as what we're talking about. You cannot do that. You just went through the details of everything you got to consider, the process, the putting it in, getting it tonight, all that work. And some guy sits there and says, I wish I had time to go see if there's really those kind of garages out there. But he just denies it. You have a weak link there. You cannot let it come down to politics and racism in how things get approved or not approved. And that's what I wanted to share with everyone today.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Allen has his hand raised on the online meeting.
Yeah, good afternoon. To the gentleman that just went ahead of me, take it from me, that's kind of the process, unfortunately, that deal with historic preservation and whether people are knowledgeable or not. Here's why I'm saying that. This is not to castigate or throw any stones. For those who on this call that know me, know that I've been involved in this work of preserving historic Gullah Geechee communities for the last 35 to 40 years. For those who may not know, this year marks the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Gullah Geechee corridor. This year also marks the 26th year that we began the conversation to actually bring to bear what I just described. And in many respects, and I think Emily would agree, we wouldn't be on this call today with all the good information that has been given had not that work been brought forth. So I need to put that out there front and center. I stand here just to, despite what you may have shared, is not to give up, but to all the communities that are here to continue to press forward and to do your level best to preserve, to protect, and to sustain your historic fabric, your community, your structures, your churches, your landscape in whatever way possible. Take it from me, we are fortunate enough to have a county that is least open to provide some remedy, some understanding, and some awareness of a challenge that's rooted in 400 years of history. While we're on this call here today, 3 hours away south of here in McIntosh County in Georgia, a referendum just came to an end that would, if the referendum is defeated, that was put out forth by the county, all that you heard today would not even be possible for what Charleston County is providing to you all tonight. So I'm just want to say that stay the course, continue to have dialogue, continue to be engaged, and when there are situations or circumstances that may not appear as they should, or may not be actually moving in the right direction, you as a citizen, have the right to bring that forward. And I only say that, I'm retired from the National Park Service, been involved with things all these years, but most recently I pledged and came on board with the county to support them in whatever way we can to preserve, to protect, to sustain Gullah Geechee history and culture. And this afternoon's Zoom call is a manifesting of that, because I know in my heart, and you all know, 26 years ago, this would not even be possible. This conversation would have probably not have ensued or even taken place. So let's take advantage of what is there, work to make it better if it needs to be, but most importantly, continue to do the work in your communities around Charleston County, that they will be viable, not just for today or tomorrow, but off into the future. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Mr. Allen.
Next, we have Anna Johnson with a hand raised online.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you. I just wanted to first thank the staff for making this available, this information available to the public online as well as in person. And, Charleston County is rapidly growing with development. And it's a big challenge for our Gullah Geechee communities and other communities that have been in existence for a long time, but may not have been formally developed like the ones that are coming in now. And so this is causing situations where the taxes is being increased a lot in the communities because of the rapid development with large homes coming in the area where there were smaller homes. And also we are getting some flooding problems because of the amount of homes in some areas that are being developed. So for the communities that are in existence that need to have some kind of control, this is a good tool. These are tools that will help them to be able to regulate their communities better and probably go at a little slower pace with development coming in their areas. So I just want to thank you all for making this presentation possible. And I hope you will continue to do this a little bit more. I know it was a lot of information, and maybe you can come back another time where more people can hear and probably have it a little bit less dense. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that recommendation. It looks like right now I don't see anyone with hand raised on the Zoom, so I'm going to transition to in person. If you're on the Zoom and something does come up, please feel free to still utilize that raise hand function and we'll call on you at the time. But anyone in person, if you would like to share a question, we would love for you to come up to the podium just so the folks on the Zoom can hear us as well.
Hello, Donna Newton. I have two questions. First question is it possible to get a copy of that slide you showed?
Yes, actually, we have a full copy of it already available for the folks online, and we will be sure to send that link. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question is, I live in a Snowden community, and we have a lot of people in the area that's part of the town of Mount Pleasant. Say Snowden want to be considered a historic district, how would that affect us going forward?
Yeah, that is a very great question. Currently, the town of Mount Pleasant doesn't have a historic preservation ordinance that mirrors the county, in the sense that they do not have the ability to designate districts or properties. So if the property is incorporated with the town of Mount Pleasant already, it would not be able to be included within the historic district boundaries for Charleston County. It can only be unincorporated Charleston County. And to your point, if a property were to be designated and then annexed in the future, it gets removed from the designation, and we don't have any oversight over development of that property.
How would that impact us, the numbers? Say somebody from the town of Mount Pleasant
Yeah.
signed our petition, then what happens then?
That's another great question. So your district boundaries will only include the unincorporated area. So those folks would not count towards the 51% unless they lived on those unincorporated properties. However, they can still sign and show their support on a separate petition, and we do, of course, incorporate all of the signatures that we receive just to show that there's a lot more maybe beyond just the 51%.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, I'm from the Snowden area also. And my question is, you talk about using the property for the purpose that it was submitted. Do you have anything that helps the community to address that with already established buildings?
We have, if I'm understanding your question correctly, we have a process for code violations and code enforcement. So if there is something if there's something going on a property beyond what has been permitted, and it's something that we would regulate, you absolutely can reach out to our department.
Yeah.
And we will go through that. We'll look at the violation and we'll see and try to address it.
Also for the zoning, if someone comes in and like Snowden is not a district yet, right? And requests a different zoning.
Right.
Do you let us know even though we're not a district yet?
You guys are asking really good questions tonight. So for an application for a rezoning, that does also trigger a lot of notifications. So we do, if there's an application for a rezoning, we send out letters to everyone within 300 feet. Now, that letter goes to whoever is paying the tax bill. Whatever the address on the tax bill is, those are the folks that are getting those letters. We hear a lot of times, I'm not getting them. Somebody might be. So that's important. But then also, it's equally important to sign up through our Engage platform online and become one of our interested parties members. So you might sign up for anything related to the ZLDR if you're interested in rezoning, anything East Cooper, in the East Cooper area. You could sign up for those lists and you would get an email blast or a text, depending on how you sign up, for all of those applications. But to go back to what you mentioned about the rezoning, that's an interesting piece, because if the community was designated as a historic district, that would be something, county council would take into consideration when they're making their determination. And they might, look at it with even a additional level of scrutiny as to whether or not that rezoning would be appropriate.
And one more thing, with the registered voter list, which we're working with, quite a bit of the children in the household have left. So the 51% would only count as Who's left at that resident?
Exactly. Who's current? Well, your voter registration should match your residence. So in theory, whoever is registered at that residence can sign.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Reverend Davis. I would like to know how much is the ACA appraisal, and is the applicant solely responsible for that cost?
Yeah. So in terms of on our side of things, the application fee is $25. And if you're doing that at the same time as your designation, that's just one $25 fee. Now, if you are looking for that technical assistance, that's going to be a separate piece. You might be looking at an advocacy group that could potentially do that for you pro bono, or you might be looking for some grant funding, which, you know, we could potentially help you with depending. So in terms of producing the actual document, I wouldn't unfortunately be able to give you a good estimate right now, but on our end, it's just $25.
Okay, and are cemeteries eligible for historic designation?
Absolutely, and we would love to see more of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Viola Stokes. I'm the president of the Snowden Community Civic Association. I have maybe two questions. The first one, this presentation is different from the one I heard before. So are you saying that the area character appraisal and the overlay zoning district should all be a part of a document we put together before we present it to the community for the signatures?
No. So those are two separate tools, two separate pathways. So you would want to first determine, are you looking at things like the land uses, the size of the house, where the house can be on the lot? If you're looking at those things, uses of the property, you might be thinking about an overlay zoning district. But if you're looking at protecting just the historic resources, cultural character, the external appearance, you might be looking at that designation. And I think what you heard was the area character appraisal and the designation. We highly recommend that those be completed at the same time.
So those should be completed, and the residents or the members of the community should know about those documents before they're signing, saying they want to be a part of this, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Because we don't want to just go get 51% signature and they don't really know
Of course.
what's in the area character appraisal. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely. Transparency is always great.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can help in some way at the staff side of things, let us know. We're happy to come out again.
Hello. My name is Nolly Swan. I don't have a question, but I did just want to plug the Clemson Historic Preservation Master's Student Program. We actually helped some communities with their ACAs and their historic designation process. So please reach out to the Master's Program. They're in the Cigar Factory downtown.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing that.
Michael German. I do live in the Snowden community, and I got three questions. One of them, I'm going back to the area character appraisal. In my opinion, that document should accompany the application for historical designation. And why that document is important, that ACA would define somewhat what the community wants. And to answer the question, the first gentleman said all the confusion, one of the major problems is we don't have that document. That document is not available, so we can make an informed decision. So it reverts back to Charleston County zoning and planning requirements to build a new home in terms of the setback and that. whatever's required there. But that area character appraisal from that particular community would be definitive in defining what we want, how far the house should be set back, the size of the house, and more importantly, what we don't want in the community. And understanding what I heard earlier, it's a living, breathing document. The administration now may say we don't want homes that look like human figurines. 3 years later, we can change that. And that's the difference to me in what an ACA does versus an area character appraisal. Our document is flexible where the other one is not. However, I do feel that that document, our area character appraisal, should have the same teeth as the homeowners association, i.e., you may have a setback that says you have to be 15 feet away from the road. But when we do our ACA and we say 20 feet away back, that's the standard. And not only that, it'll provide information immediately to anybody buying property in our community, what they need to do and what are the requirements in building a home. But because that's not there now, it's very difficult, because what I've seen, it always revert back to the Charleston County zoning and planning requirements in terms of building a home, where it could be totally different from the area that's been designated as a historical district, because that's not what the majority of the people want. But because, again, that document is not there, it makes it difficult. And in my opinion, that document should be submitted along with the application becoming an historical district. I got it written here. No, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Those are my observations. And thank you. And we will invite you to come out to the Snout community again sometime in the future for a bit more clarification. Thank you.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Mr. German. Appreciate your comments. Oh, no.
You got plenty of money now, and I'm broke. No, I got to pay my child support. Richard Habersham from the Phillips community. I got a statement and I got two questions for you. You know, like I tell people, nobody tried to stop nobody from buying property or selling property in the community. But when you buy property, you better understand what you're buying and where you're coming at. Like I always tell people, if you go to Dunes West and Park West, you know, two communities close together, you can't build the same house in Dunes West that you pull in Park West and vice versa. So when you come in the community, they have to understand what they're buying and what they're getting. So when you're going to buy something, hey, buyer's remorse. Question, on your area character appraisal, how do you add to that if you miss something and you didn't?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Another great question. It would have to go through that full process again.
Just to add?
Yep.
Okay.
So, like, it sounds like maybe we are already getting that. That's the 51% in the full council process. Yeah.
Just add a couple of items?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. The next one is, how did the mitigation part of the works when somebody builds something that is not appropriate to the community?
Yeah.
What's the other mitigation part of that works?
So, and I'm not sure if you're talking about a different mitigation review process that we're involved in right now.
Well,
but
we got, let me stop you. Well, we got another one, a major one coming in the Phillips community. And that, what I've seen, that totally, don't go along with nothing in the community. It's something totally different.
Right. And not to confuse anything, since I know that you're involved in that coastal zone consistency, which is a separate process from us that the state conducts. But to bring it back to the county, the last approval criteria is that you have to show that you've minimized and mitigated any negative impacts to identify contributing resources. So if when the proposal comes forward to the commission, we determine that the house design or, other aspects of the development could potentially negatively impact those resources, that's when we do the exercise of talking about minimization and mitigation. And I can't really tell you what that's going to look like because that's going to look different for every project, and it's going to depend on the project.
How does the process work?
Yeah.
Not how it's going to look.
So for us, it would be through the design. It would be just showing that you've minimized and mitigated those impacts as much as possible. For example, some things we've seen in the past is in the Ashley River Historic District, we had folks that were doing a water main or a gas line. They had to hire an archaeologist to be present on site in case there were anything that came up, and that was their mitigation. So it might look different for everyone. It might be a resources survey. So if we do know that there are a lot of artifacts on the site, maybe the mitigation is to do a survey of those resources. So it could look different for every application.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. I don't see any more hands on the Zoom. Oh, perfect. We got some more in person.
Good evening. I would like to thank you all for putting this together. It's very important as we come together as different Gullah Geechee settlement communities that we are all on the same page. And it's very important that we understand, and misinformation has gone around to make it harder to get these signatures. One of the questions with the signatures, a voter registration list, covering that with the communities that may want to participate. What do they do to get that list, and how do they narrow it down to the border of their community?
Yeah. So another great question. So the process currently, and again, this is always subject to improvement or refinement, but the current process is to go through the state board of voter elections. They have an opportunity to request that information on their website. You can also call them. They're incredibly helpful. There is a fee for that, and it's based on the number of items. And there's a way that they can tailor the information. So they can only provide the information in like council districts, state house districts, school districts, categories they already have. So what we always encourage folks to do is to select the smallest category. Now, for your particular situation being in Hamlin Beach, you have 2 county council districts, so that does make it a little bit more difficult. So you would want to identify that smallest list, right? So the cost is the least. And once you get that information, we can help you refine it and eliminate any addresses and properties that are not within your proposed boundaries. So we'll do all that work. Once you have the raw data, we'll refine it and take it down to just the district boundaries for you.
And okay, with the list, if you have members of your community that's deceased,
yes,
and also people that have moved out, we identify those names, and you do the research to see if they have passed away. We don't have to bring death certificates and things
Absolutely.
like that.
I saw your email about that. Please no. Please no, I would not want to see that.
Okay. The other question is with different communities, if the whole community is not acceptable or want to come into an historic district, can a certain street going back, or can you separate it and say, okay, we want to designate our 10, 15, 20 acres and do it that way? And if the community wants to come in later, they can do it, so a community can designate their particular parcels.
Absolutely.
And because it's not, and especially like in the different areas with Mount Pleasant, you're not contiguous, because Mount Pleasant is taking bits and pieces out. So if I'm on one street and the other person's on another street and it doesn't touch, can you jump like that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
The key would be that you're, in your responses, in the documentation, you're showing how those properties are connected.
Okay.
Through the story. I could think of like Solagri as an example. So they haven't designated the entire community as a historic district, but they did designate the Mosquito Beach area as a historic district. And then also years ago, the Seashore Farmers Lodge on Old Soligree and Soligree, that was also designated as an individual historic property. So that's the way they've kind of gone about it, is just to protect those individual properties. So a lot of different approaches, absolutely.
Okay, and that leads to another question. In other communities, they're like you said, buildings and things like that. So the home or the landowner and the community can get together to do it, but even with that one property, you still would need 51%?
No, if it's just one property, that would come in as a historic property instead of a district. And in that case, it's a little bit different because we would need the property owner's signature. Right. The only issue there might be heirs property. So that would potentially be an issue that we don't get into with the district.
I understand. So thank you. Appreciate
of
your help.
course. Thank you. I do see while Ms. Grant is standing up, I think I have one more on the Zoom, but let's get to, you want to go first? Yeah, Ms. Grant, why don't you? You're already up.
Good evening. Again, thank you. The information is always overwhelming.
I know.
Yet is needed. Just wanted to know, what's the turnaround for, how often can you do them? Yeah. And does it always have to be the whole presentation? Can it be just historic?
No.
And just, because I get frequent calls from other communities that want to know. Yeah. They're hearing about what's going on. They're starting to understand the benefits. And so can you please address that, since we have so many people?
Absolutely. So we covered everything today that we were asked to cover, and so we know it was a lot of information. So absolutely, I would love to break this down into smaller, more digestible pieces for folks to work with. Now, if you meant how often can we do a hybrid meeting in council chambers about this, I don't know the answer to that. But how often can we come out to your community meetings and make ourselves available? Every month.
Okay.
So
they just contact you?
Absolutely.
All right, because I have like 5 different communities that are asking.
Oh my gosh.
So I just wanted you to say that, because
yes,
most of them are online now.
Please do.
Again, thank you. And it's so much material. It takes people, a little bit. It's not something we do every day.
No.
So just understanding it, and understanding it's important to protect our Gullah Geechee communities. And thank you all for your time.
You. It's good to see you.
Same here.
All right, Ms. Johnson, I see your hand raised. I think we're ready for you if you want to speak again.
Oh, yes. Okay. I just, really wanted to reiterate a comment that Commissioner German made about the necessary need for the area character appraisal, because that really does let us know, what the community wants. And we have been getting a lot of requests coming in to the Historic Preservation Commission, where, developers are coming with something else that's different from what the community wants. And if we don't have that appraisal, then it makes it very difficult for us to side with the community wishes if that document is not present.
Absolutely.
If it's not official.
Yeah.
So if people are going to sign up to be a historic district, I think it would be wise to have that document submitted at the same time, so that all of it is considered together. People would not be, mistakenly thinking that because they have been approved as a historic district, that their wishes are going to be respected, as far as, for an example, house size. If you want a house size of 2,000 square feet, and that's not in your appraisal anywhere, we don't have that, then that's not something that we would be, holding accountable for. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, for reiterating that importance. Is there any? You got one?
I wanted to mention Stephanie has provided in the chat some important links to the documents, including a copy of this presentation. And for the folks that are here in person, we will share the same link with you if you provided your email address on the sign-in sheet. We will send all of this information out to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. I think I see one more, at least one more.
Quick question. Vera German. I just want to make sure I understood what you said. In the community where I live, which is Snowden, some people are in the town, some are not. And I know you said this doesn't apply to the town. So it seems like if we were to become a part of the historic district, and I wanted to do something on my property that was restricted by the guidelines, I could just join the town and do whatever I want, as long as it meets the county or the town's guidelines, right?
You are correct. As long as you're eligible for annexation and they accept you, yes, ma'am. We have no control over that. No, I appreciate that.
Okay.
It's a great point to make. I think we got one more, maybe that spurred a thought.
I wanted to answer that you have to be contiguous to the town Mount Pleasant. So the town can't just come in the middle of the community and say, I'm taking this 10 acres and everything around it is Charleston County.
Right.
So that's one of the plus why we're fighting this water sewer annexation force by the town Mount Pleasant. But with the area character appraisal, as where I was talking to Mr. Havisham, he said, just look at it as the area character appraisal is what you have. The overlay is what you want, don't want, will allow in your community. So as the area character appraisal, we're just picking out what we have in the community, how the community, a visual of how the community looks. So a lot of people have been thinking, homeowner association, and it's going to restrict you when you do the area character appraisal. And we're just trying to make it clear. It just shows you what we have. We just went through the area, took the pictures, went and looked at the stats or the sets back and everything off each street. So it's not restricting you from anything in that community. It's just showing you what we have in the community, because we're working on it. And that was one of the questions. If we have an area character appraisal, it will stop people from building their homes and doing different things like that. And hopefully we have it in place. There's a few adjustments that we have to do, and prayerfully we'll have it by the end of this month, or definitely by the end of February to turn in. So I'm looking forward to go through the community and have this as a key to show them and explain to them what an area character appraisal represents. So like I said, again, thank you so very much for coming out to the community to explain. Thank you for tonight. And we'll use this in our tool as we walk around to get our 51% of the registered voters to have ours in, and hopefully by the end of June, it'll be done. So thank you again.
Of course. Awesome. If there are no more questions, I'll just put it out on the Zoom one more time. I don't see anybody. Oh, I got one more. Mr. Habersham, close this out.
Yeah, I just got one thing to say. Y'all doing a terrific job. But Walt, Emily can't do it all by herself. I mean, not picking on county, but you got a lot of work to do. It's just like you did 10 Mile, you're doing Hamlin, and then hopefully we're coming up next. And to do one at a time, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I know. So the county do need to get you some more help. And I hope they do get you some more help on this.
Well, I always appreciate your support, Mr. Habersham. I love doing the work, so.
You hear me, Mr. Walt? Smalls?
I think he heard you the first time. I really appreciate you all coming out. And like I said, this is not the first and last you're going to see of us. So hopefully it'll be an ongoing conversation. We can learn together and help move forward in whichever way is appropriate for your communities. And thank you to everyone on the Zoom. And big thank you to Stephanie for managing the Zoom so well. And we'll be sure, if you signed up with your email, we'll be sure to send you all of the resources from today. Awesome. Thank you. That was so sweet. Everyone was so complimentary on the Zoom.